we need to talk about the Japanese mafia character in Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. He's pretty epic. Ichiban from the series Like a Dragon, aka Yakuza. So basically, this video is an overview of the series for Sonic fans if you're new to Like a Dragon, which I have experience with, and it is phenomenal, I'm telling you right now. The first game came out on PS2 in 2005. It's an action-adventure game with beat-em-up combat for battles and bosses. It has cutscenes and dialogue. You advance through the main story, and there's side missions, kind of like GTA in that way, and with all kinds of surreal surprises. You play this game and you're just like, this is mind-blowingly immersive and polished, dramatically compelling, and yet at the same time utterly absurd and comical, kind of like Metal Gear Solid. So the initial games in this series were Yakuza 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 0, which is a prequel, and then after that came the remake of the first game, called Yakuza Kiwami. That was my entry point to the series, and it won me over as a top-notch AAA game. This is quality. And yet, in terms of budget, it's sort of considered a AA game. For gameplay depth and story and characters, it's just an absolute blast. Sonic Racing CrossWorlds now has the character Ichiban. That's the main character you play as in Yakuza 7 and 8, and I admire Sega's willingness to continue the series with a different main character, because all the games up until 7 had you play as Kiryu. Kiryu already appeared in Super Monkey Ball, so this is not the first time that Like a Dragon characters have shown up in a wicked Sega game. That name, Kiryu, is an English-facing pun that's funny, as in kill you, like the Death Note character Kira. So CrossWorlds has the character Ichiban Kazuga. Well, okay. CrossWorlds says this character is from the series Like a Dragon, even though in America the series is still called Yakuza for the first several mainline games where you would pick your entry point. It's on Steam and everything. It's official still. In Japan, the series was always called Like a Dragon from the beginning. America only began using that name Like a Dragon starting with Yakuza 7. So in America, the first game's title conveys organized crime. In Japan, the first game's title conveys majestic masculinity. I turned off the gore in my playthrough, and I respect the option being there. It's just, for me, it's pretty rough to see that all the time, especially spilling blood as a currency between two friendly rivals, Kiryu and Majima, who are ultimately not trying to kill each other. I don't like to mix those friendly social dynamics with this much blood spilling out. These Yakuza characters are up to all kinds of stuff in their games that would never fly on Cartoon Network. There's hostess clubs, sex work. Nowadays at the Oscars, the Best Actress winner thanks the sex workers and exotic dancers who helped her research her role, that they should not be stigmatized but glorified. If so, then Yakuza games might retroactively be a positive force in women's interests, according to that Hollywood actress. Is Ichiban unprecedented in CrossWorlds? Well, Fortnite has Deadpool. The bingo card for Deadpool movies has condoms, missionary, strippers, and here's a Mandela effect test. If you saw Deadpool 1 in the theaters versus the unrated version, is there a doggy scene? Yes or no? Ready Player One, have at it. Don't comment on your findings in the comments. Just consider it. Because the point is, Yakuza games don't even have doggy, and Deadpool is owned and published by Disney. And since Wreck-It Ralph appeared in Sonic Racing Transformed, that means there is ample precedent for Ichiban Kazuga. So if the Yakuza character in CrossWorlds has piqued your interest, I want to suggest things you should consider to get the most out of your entry point to these games. Which game to start with? This is a contested topic depending on who you ask. It might seem obvious to just start with the remake of the first game, Yakuza Kiwami. That's what I did. It was fantastic, so I can personally recommend that. But some people may press you on the fact that, oh, you should actually play the prequel first, Yakuza 0, which has background context for some of the characters in Game 1. And Yakuza 1 Kiwame even touches upon those plot threads associated with certain characters, so there are additional story threads that were not present in the very first PS2 game long before the prequel was made. But the thing is, I can testify I haven't played Yakuza 0, and I had no problem following along the core story of Yakuza Kiwame. Maybe there are some references or character motivations that were lost on me, but they're not integral. You're not going to be lost. In the first place, prequel stories only hit properly when you're like, okay, I'm getting to see how that rivalry started, knowing everything I know about what they go on to do in Yakuza 1. Like, if you introduce your friend to Star Wars movies, you wouldn't tell him to start with The Phantom Menace. Yes, the story takes place before A New Hope, but if you don't know about how Anakin is Darth Vader and all the evil things he's going to go on to do, you're just like, why would I care about this little kid roaming across the desert? If there's any major reason to play 0 first, it's not the story elements, but combat mechanics. It's only responsible for me to mention this for full transparency. Yakuza Kiwame has an amazing system of battle mechanics where you have 4 different fighting styles, each with their own moveset that you can toggle on demand. So it's pretty much like Sonic Heroes. You can switch between them at any time, mid-battle, and there's even incentive to synergize different styles as the fight progresses. It's phenomenal. The thing is, I have to mention this, Yakuza Kiwame does have robust tutorials for everything except the 4 fighting styles. You just get them abruptly very early in the game. Early on, there's an on-screen prompt that says, you have 4 battle styles now. Go wild, switch on demand. It's worth mentioning this because those 4 specific battle styles were first introduced in Yakuza 0, the prequel, where you unlock each battle style one at a time by doing a storyline with each specific character that teaches you the philosophy and nuance of each style. But Yakuza Kiwame has none of these primers. Look, you can still manage, I certainly did. It just means you kind of have to experiment and try stuff on basic enemies in the streets. But objectively, it is sort of a disappointing gap because it semi-assumes you've played 0, which is not ideal. All it needed was a standalone optional tutorial. It didn't even need to be baked into the story and characters. But, on the bright side, this means that when I eventually play Yakuza 0, then I'll get a more thorough regimen on the 4 fighting styles and their backstory. And then I have further reason to replay Yakuza Kiwame after that with a fresh perspective of combat efficiencies, with additional layers to notice in the plot threads that are referenced in the remake of 1. So I am still going to recommend you start with Yakuza Kiwame, but it couldn't hurt to look up some YouTube tutorials on the 4 movesets. This leaves only one thing left to confront before you begin your journey in this series, and that is the voices. It's the question of, should you hear the characters talk in their native Japanese language or use the English dub? Yakuza games present a different equation than something like Sonic. When you play Sonic games, you often have the option of English or Japanese voice acting. And some Sonic tubers always default to the JP original on the basis of it being more authentic and true to the core of the game's creation. But I reject that, because although Sonic was developed in Japan by Japanese folks, Sonic games are not set in Japan. As we all know, Sonic games are primarily intended for a Western audience. So by hearing the English voices in Sonic games, you're perceiving so much more specific inflection and personality nuance. Because when you listen to the Japanese audio, you literally have no idea which words and syllables the characters are emphasizing, and whether their speaking quirks deviate from standard common word usage and pronunciation accents. Okay, but this whole thing is different with Yakuza games, because the stories in this series are an inherently Japanese experience. The setting and cultural subject matter of Like a Dragon games are an essential aspect of what the game offers. And it just so happens that the voice acting in Yakuza Kiwame is splendid and immersive and captivating. And it's for that same reason I would recommend you watch My Brilliant Friend with the OG Italian dialogue, because that story is quintessentially Neapolitan. So to play a game like Yakuza converted to English dialogue would feel to me like a fraudulent dissonance, and to a glaring extent. And this is simply not a factor in games like Sonic the Hedgehog. So Alex's vote is use the Japanese original voices. And if you play your cards right, by this time next Christmas, you could be looking at Yakuza 1 Kiwame for around $10. It may become your new obsession like it was for me, and I quite look forward to playing Yakuza 0. So it's time to wrap up the video with one final courtesy heads up from Alex Yard, here at 91.6 WAYC, the Alex Yard Zone, terrestrial internet radio deep in the heart of Boston. So here we go. I'm just going to give you the heads up that in Yakuza Kiwame, one of the boss themes in the game is amazing, but they use it way too many times for major fights. So this issue is not as severe as like the Sonic Unleashed battle music problem. It's not that extreme, but it's still pretty bad. The Yakuza song in question makes an incredible first impression with Shimano, but then you go on to hear it a lot of times after that, and it undermines the amazing impact of that initial reveal, and further undercuts the stakes of later sequences, because it's just like, oh, it's just a Shimano copy-paste. So I'm not making a big deal about it, it's just I don't want to be responsible for you being blindsided, because I do want to introduce you to Yakuza games, provided you abide by the rating of M. Good night, everybody.